I still don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it. It's been months now, and it still creeps back into my head sometimes like this shadow. I mean, I know it's over, I know I'm fine, but it doesn't feel like that. Not completely. So, yeah, it started as something small. Something so ordinary. I had this stomach issue, or at least I thought it was. You know, the kind of thing you don't even worry about. Maybe some indigestion, maybe something I ate. Anyway, I went in to get it checked out thinking they'd give me some antacid and send me home. No big deal, right? But then the doctor... God, I still hear his voice. He comes in, and there's this look on his face like he's about to drop a bomb on me. He sits down, really serious, and tells me, no, he just says it flat out, that they found something bad. I remember just sitting there, not even fully understanding the words he was saying. Terminal. He said it like it was the weather. Like, today it's sunny, and by the way, you're dying. I didn't know how to react. I mean, who's ready to hear that? I was just there for a checkup, and suddenly I had weeks, maybe months, but not more than that. It didn't feel real. It felt like I was floating, like the world had just stopped. You know that feeling? Like everything around you is moving, but you're frozen. I didn't cry. Not at first. I think I was in shock. I just nodded, said, okay, thank you. I even thanked him. Can you believe that? I thanked the guy who told me I was about to die. The worst part was the waiting. After they told me, I had to wait for more tests, more consultations, all of it. And during that time, it was like a clock was ticking in my head. Every second felt heavier. I couldn't think about anything else. I kept wondering, how long do I have? What does dying even feel like? You start questioning everything. Even little things like, should I keep paying my bills? Should I make a will? I couldn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering, what now? What do I do with the time I have left? And I felt so guilty for not handling it better, you know? I wasn't brave. I didn't have this big moment of clarity. I just felt scared. Alone. I didn't tell anyone. Not right away. I couldn't. How do you even begin to have that conversation? Hey, I'm dying. Sorry about that. I thought maybe I'd tell them after the next appointment, once I knew more. But those days, they were hell. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone different, someone fading. I was grieving myself. I think that's what it was. Like I'd already started mourning my own death. It wasn't until the next appointment that I found out it was all a mistake. Just like that. They said it was a mix-up with the charts. My results had been swapped with another patient's. I wasn't terminal. I wasn't dying. I should have been relieved. And I was. For a second. But then this anger hit me. Anger, confusion, shame. Like, how could this even happen? How could they get something like that wrong? 1 minute I'm counting down the days I have left, and the next, I'm just supposed to go back to normal? Like nothing happened? It's not that simple. You can't just forget the feeling of death hanging over you. It's still there in the back of my mind. Even now, sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I'm still dying, that they missed something, that maybe it wasn't a mistake after all, and they just haven't told me yet. I don't know. I keep telling myself I'm fine, but part of me still doesn't believe it. It's like, once you've looked death in the face, even if it wasn't real, it changes you. It's always there, just waiting. I lost those few days to fear, and I don't know if I'll ever get them back. It feels like a scar now, this invisible mark I carry around with me. I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong, I'm so grateful that it was a mistake. But the fear doesn't go away just because they say you're okay. It stays with you, it lingers, it changes you.
My name's Amanda Green. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I guess I didn't think I'd ever be telling this story. I mean, hospitals are supposed to be safe, right? They're where you go to get better. But that night, after my surgery, I learned that's not always the case. I was in there for something serious. It wasn't just a routine operation. I'd had a major issue with my heart. Scary stuff. But they said I'd be fine, that the surgery had gone well, and all I had to do was rest and let the machines do the work. You know the kind, right? Those machines that beep and buzz, constantly tracking your vitals. It's supposed to be comforting. I mean, that's what they're there for, to make sure you're still alive. But then, that night happened. It was late. Probably after midnight, though I'm not sure exactly when it started. The room was dark, just the dim glow of those machines next to my bed. The only noise was their steady beeping, like a mechanical heartbeat. I remember feeling groggy from the meds, but I was awake enough to know something wasn't right. It started with this beep. Not the regular, calm beep 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 you get used to after hours of hearing it. This one was urgent, sharp, like a warning. You don't need to be a doctor to know when something's wrong with those machines. My pulse was climbing, too fast. I could feel it in my chest, this heavy, pounding sensation like my heart was trying to break out of my ribcage. I pressed the call button. Once, twice, nothing. Just that incessant beeping. And then my chest started tightening, like something was squeezing the life out of me. I tried to breathe, but every breath felt shallow, like I wasn't getting enough air. The machine started screaming now, alarms going off, red lights flashing, but still, no one came. It's funny, isn't it? When you're lying there, helpless, hooked up to all these machines, you just assume someone's always watching. Someone's always there, ready to jump in if anything goes wrong. But there I was, struggling to breathe, and no one showed up. I pressed that call button again, and again. Nothing. I don't know how long I lay there, but it felt like forever. And the whole time, all I could think was, this is it. This is how I'm gonna die. Not because of the surgery, not because of my heart condition, but because no one's coming. The machines are screaming. I'm screaming in my head, and there's no one. At one point, I remember my vision started to blur. My hands were shaking. Actually, my whole body was shaking, but I was too weak to sit up. I tried to reach for the call button again, but my fingers felt numb. I couldn't get a deep breath, and the panic was like nothing I've ever felt. It was like being underwater, knowing you're running out of air, but you can't do a damn thing about it. And still no one. The alarms kept going, relentless, echoing in my skull, and I couldn't help but wonder, can't anyone hear this? Aren't these things supposed to get their attention? What if the machines fail? What if my heart gives out right now? I think I started crying. Not loud or anything. I didn't have the strength for that, just quiet tears rolling down the sides of my face as I lay there, thinking about my family, my parents, my sister. Would they even know what happened? Or would I just be another patient who didn't make it through the night? I kept fading in and out of consciousness, time stretching and bending, and I was sure, that I wasn't going to make it. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself, and I was slipping away, inch by inch. And then, finally, they came. The door burst open, a nurse rushed in, followed by 2 more staff. They were shouting instructions at each other, flipping switches, adjusting the machines. I couldn't really understand what they were saying. Everything was a blur. But one thing was clear. They hadn't been paying attention. They hadn't been monitoring me like they were supposed to. And if they had been just a little later, I don't know how long it took for me to stabilize, but they eventually calmed the machines down, got my heart rate back under control. One of the nurses said something about technical issues, that the monitors didn't alert them in time. Some kind of glitch, I guess. But to me, it didn't matter. What mattered was that for those endless minutes or hours, I don't even know, I had been completely alone. And I was convinced I was going to die right there in that hospital bed, while the machines screamed for help and no one came. Even now, when I think about it, I get this knot in my chest. It's not the heart problem that's fixed now. It's the fear. The fear that you can be surrounded by all this equipment, all this technology, and it still might not save you. It might even fail you. After that, I couldn't trust hospitals. I couldn't trust the machines. Every beep, every flash of a light puts me right back in that bed, waiting, gasping for air, wondering if anyone's going to show up in time. So yeah, I survived. But the truth is, I'm still not sure how, and I'm still haunted by the question, what if they'd been just a few minutes later? Would I even be here telling you this?
My name's Mark Williams, and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know if you've ever been under the knife. Maybe you've had a surgery or two, maybe just something routine. But for me, this one time, it messed me up. I can't walk into a hospital without feeling my stomach tighten. It was a minor operation, something about my knee, but what happened that day, it sticks with me. Like, I still replay it in my head even though it's been years. So yeah, I was in for a routine arthroscopy. Nothing big, nothing life-threatening. I remember thinking, okay, I'll be in and out, no problem, just like everyone told me. You know, I've never had a problem with doctors. I actually trust them. Well, I used to. Anyway, I'm lying there in the pre-op room, wearing one of those flimsy hospital gowns, freezing my ass off when they start wheeling me into the OR. And that's when things started feeling off. Not that I was scared, no, but there was something in the air, you know? Like this tension I couldn't shake. I don't know, maybe it was just my nerves or the cold, sterile smell of the place. The nurses are talking over me like I'm not even there. That's normal, right? I mean, they do this all the time. But then, they start prepping me for anesthesia, and just as I'm about to drift off, I hear this conversation. It's between two doctors, I think, and it's about some other patient. They're talking about a complicated procedure. Something about a tumor. I can't remember the exact words, but it was enough to freeze my blood. And just before the anesthesia kicks in, I realize they're standing right next to me. I'm laying there, completely helpless, hearing them talk about this major surgery as if it's happening right now. But the thing is, I wasn't there for that. I'm just here for a knee issue. It was supposed to be simple, but in that moment I couldn't speak. My mouth wouldn't move. I wanted to scream, shout, do anything to get their attention, but nothing. I was trapped, and then black. When I woke up, well, it wasn't immediate. I came to in stages. You know that groggy feeling after anesthesia? Like you're aware but not really? That's where I was. I couldn't shake the thought of what I'd overheard. That chill that ran through me when they were discussing this major surgery, it hadn't left. The first thing I did when I could move was try to check my knee. Was it bandaged? Did it feel different? But I couldn't tell. My body was still numb and panic started to creep in. I didn't know if they'd operated on my knee or if they'd done something else. Something worse. Did they mix me up with that other patient? I pressed the call button for the nurse, but no one came. Minutes felt like hours. My mind was spinning. What if they had done something? What if I was about to wake up with some major surgery scar, or worse? When the nurse finally showed up, I couldn't stop myself from asking, hell, demanding, to know what they'd done. But she just gave me this look, like I was overreacting. She told me everything had gone as planned and that I should rest, but she didn't say what that plan was. No details, no reassurance. That's when I really started to freak out. I asked again and again, did you operate on the right thing? Is my knee fine? But all I got were these vague answers. Hours passed before I could finally see the doctor, and let me tell you, those hours felt like torture. My mind went to the darkest places, thinking about botched surgeries, wrong patients, and everything else that could go wrong in a hospital. Finally, the surgeon comes in, acting all casual like nothing's wrong. He sits down and tells me finally that the operation went smoothly. It was my knee, just like they said it would be. I was fine. But man, those few hours before they told me, they were hell. Pure hell. Even though I got the answers I needed, the damage was already done. I don't trust hospitals anymore. I don't trust the doctors, the nurses, none of them. That one overheard conversation changed everything for me. I know it sounds stupid, but the way they talked about someone else's major surgery while I was laying there, helpless, made me feel like I didn't matter, like I was just another body on the table. And that feeling, being powerless, it stuck with me ever since. So yeah, it was just a minor surgery and everything turned out fine, but I still think about it. I still hear their voices, talking like I wasn't even there, like I wasn't a person anymore. Just a patient on the list. Trust me, after that, you never look at hospitals the same way again.
I don't even know where to start. It's something that still doesn't sit right with me. I keep going over it in my head trying to make sense of it, but I can't. So I was in the hospital for this routine surgery. Nothing major, just something they said would take a day or two and I'd be back home. And everything seemed fine at first. You know, doctors coming in, nurses checking up, the usual. They did the surgery and it went well, or at least that's what they told me. It was that first night after, though. God, I don't know. Maybe I was just groggy from the anesthesia or something, but something happened. I woke up in the middle of the night, still kind of foggy, but awake enough to know I wasn't dreaming. The room was dim, just the light from the hallway coming through the crack in the door. And there she was, this nurse standing by my bed. I thought, it was just part of the whole recovery process, like they're supposed to check on you. But there was something off. I can't even explain it, right? But her uniform. It didn't look like what the other nurses had been wearing earlier. And there was no name tag, nothing. I remember thinking, shouldn't she have a badge? She didn't say a word. Not a single word. Just started doing things. Checking the IV, writing something down, and then she gave me this pill. I didn't ask what it was because, why would I? You just trust them, right? You assume they know what they're doing, but I don't know, something about her felt wrong, like she didn't fit there. I should have said something, I should have asked, but I didn't. I don't know, maybe I was too tired, too confused, or scared? Yeah, I was scared, but not in the moment, not until later. It was like my brain was telling me something's not right here, but my body wouldn't react. Does that make sense? I was just frozen. After she gave me the pill, she walked out. Didn't even look at me again. Just left, like she was never there. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, thinking, was that real? The next morning I asked about her during rounds. I thought maybe they'd tell me, oh, she's new or something, or maybe they'd explain what the pill was. But no, they looked at me like I was crazy. Said no one had come into my room last night. Said there wasn't anyone on staff matching that description. I still can't shake it. Who was she? What did she give me? What if it wasn't something I was supposed to take? I don't know if they mixed up the meds or if she even... God, was she even a nurse? It's been weeks now and I still don't have answers. Every time I think about it, I get this tight feeling in my chest. Like, what if I'd been given something dangerous? Or what if she was something worse? Hospitals make mistakes all the time, don't they? They lose track of patients, they mix up medications, but this felt deliberate. Like she wasn't supposed to be there. Like she was watching me. I can't even explain it properly. I'm rambling, aren't I? It felt so real in the moment. But every time I try to tell someone, they look at me like I'm paranoid or something. Maybe I am. Maybe this is all just my mind playing tricks, but why would my mind make something like that up? I don't know. I can't stop thinking about it. What if she comes back? What if she's doing this to other patients? I keep seeing her face in my dreams. Blank, no emotion, just staring at me like I wasn't even there. And the worst part? I'll never know what she gave me. I'll never know what that pill was or if it did something to me. It could have been anything. Anything. And now I'm scared to ever go back to a hospital. Because who knows what else happens when you're unconscious, when you're vulnerable. You put your trust in these people. But what if one day, someone like her walks into your room, and there's nothing you can do to stop it?
My name's David Harper, and I'm from Denver, Colorado. This happened a few years ago, and to be honest, I haven't really talked about it much. I've thought about it a lot, actually, but saying it out loud, it still feels too strange, too unsettling. But anyway, here it is. So I was in the hospital for this routine procedure, nothing major, just something with my lungs. They said I'd be in and out in a couple of days, no big deal. I wasn't really nervous, more just bored, Hospitals have this way of making time crawl. The machines beeping, the lights that never really turn off. It's not exactly easy to relax. And the worst part? Being alone. That first night, I couldn't sleep. The nurses came in and out, checking vitals, doing their rounds, but it was quiet. Eerily quiet. Except for the sounds of machines and distant footsteps in the hallway. Then, out of nowhere, the guy in the bed next to mine spoke up. I hadn't even noticed him at first, but he must have been admitted after me, or maybe I was too out of it to notice. "Can't sleep either, huh?" he said. I turned my head, and there he was. Mid-50s, I'd guess, with graying hair and this kind of tired look in his eyes. He had one of those hospital gowns on, just like me, and he was propped up in bed, staring at the ceiling like he was waiting for the night to end. I was just relieved to have someone to talk to. Yeah, no kidding, I said, and we got to talking. It started out small, hospital small talk. Why we were there, how long we'd been stuck in that god-forsaken room. His name was Jack. He didn't say much about why he was there, just something about tests for some old injury. Honestly, it didn't seem that important at the time. What mattered was that for the first time since I'd been admitted, I didn't feel so alone. We talked for hours, well into the night. At some point, I must have drifted off mid-conversation, because when I woke up, the room was empty. No sign of Jack, no sheets messed up on his bed, nothing. It was like he hadn't been there at all. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he got discharged early or moved to another room. I figured the nurse would tell me, so I just pressed the call button. When she came in, I asked about him. I said something like, "Hey, the guy next to me, did they move him or something?" And she just gave me this blank look, like she had no idea what I was talking about. "There hasn't been anyone in that bed all week," she said, like it was a fact, plain as day. I blinked. No, there was a guy here last night. We talked for hours. His name was Jack." She looked at the bed, pristine, untouched. Then she looked at me like I was losing it. "I'm sorry, but no one's been in that bed since you were admitted." At that point, I didn't know what to say. I knew what I'd experienced. Jack was there, right next to me, talking to me. We had this long conversation. I remember his voice, the way he'd laugh when we joked about hospital food. It was real, but there was no sign of him. The sheets were perfectly made, like no one had slept there. And the nurse? She just kept repeating it. "No one's been there, Mr. Harper. You must have been dreaming." Dreaming? It didn't feel like a dream. I can still hear his voice, the way he talked about his family, how he was tired of being in hospitals. Dreams don't stick with you like that. I wasn't dreaming. I was awake, but I started to doubt myself. How do you argue with a perfectly empty bed, with a nurse who's telling you that you imagined it all? I felt like I was going crazy, like I'd made the whole thing up in my head. But I hadn't. I know I hadn't. I tried to let it go, tried to convince myself maybe he really did get moved, and there was some mix-up. But when the next nurse came in during her shift, I asked again, just to be sure. Same answer, "No one's been here." It was like Jack never existed. For the rest of my stay, that empty bed haunted me. I kept glancing over at it, expecting to see some sign that someone had been there. Wrinkled sheets, a pillow out of place, anything. But it stayed perfectly made, pristine, untouched. I never saw Jack again, and no one could explain where he went, or if he'd ever been there at all. I know what you're thinking. Maybe I was still loopy from the anesthesia, maybe I'd been dreaming. But no, I've had dreams before, and I've been groggy after surgery. This was different. This felt real. Jack was real. It still bothers me, though, because I don't have an answer. I can't explain it. And the fact that the hospital staff were so adamant that no one had been in that bed, that made it worse. It's like this thing that happened, and I can't prove it. I can't make sense of it, but I can't forget it either. Even now, every time I think about it, I feel this weird sense of unease. Like, what if I wasn't alone that night? What if Jack really was there, but something happened, something I'll never understand? I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those things you're not supposed to understand. But I remember it all too clearly for it to be nothing. I remember his voice, our conversation, the relief I felt having someone to talk to. And now I'm just left with questions I'll probably never get answers to, but that empty bed, it still haunts me.